If you grow chili peppers, you may have experienced one of the most frustrating things in gardening. Everything looks right, yet the harvest simply refuses to happen. Your chili plant appears strong and healthy. The leaves are rich and green, the stems look sturdy, and when summer arrives, the plant produces plenty of beautiful little flowers. For a while, it seems like you're about to have more chilies than you know what to do with. Then, almost without warning, something changes. Flowers begin falling before they can become fruit, new growth seems slower, and the number of chilies developing on the plant suddenly drops. The strange part is that the plant may still look perfectly healthy from a distance. You water it regularly, you give it fertilizer, you make sure it receives plenty of sunlight, and yet it seems as if the plant has simply decided to stop producing. I remember noticing this exact problem one summer when I had two chili plants growing right beside each other. They were the same variety, planted in nearly identical pots, using the same soil, receiving the same amount of water, and sitting in almost exactly the same afternoon sunlight. There was practically no obvious difference between them, and yet the results were completely different. One plant continued producing flower after flower, followed by one small chili after another. The second plant looked just as healthy, but its production had almost completely stalled. I kept looking at those two plants and asking myself the same question. If they have almost everything in common, why are they behaving so differently? That question stayed with me for weeks, and eventually it led me toward a simple kitchen cupboard ingredient that many gardeners have heard of but may not fully understand. It wasn't an expensive garden product, a rare fertilizer, or some complicated treatment that required special equipment. In fact, it was something I had walked past countless times without realizing that it could have a role in the garden. Before I explain what it is, and more importantly, when it actually makes sense to use it, if you enjoy practical gardening advice that focuses on understanding the plant instead of chasing every new gardening trend, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps support the channel, and there are plenty more simple, useful gardening lessons coming your way. Now, here is the part that completely changed how I looked at chili plants. Their nutritional needs are not exactly the same throughout their entire life. When a young chili plant is getting established, its main priority is building leaves, stems, and roots. During that stage, nitrogen is particularly important because it supports vigorous leafy growth. But once the plant matures and begins producing flowers and fruit, the situation changes. The plant is no longer focused primarily on building a larger green framework. Now it has another job: producing flowers, setting fruit, and carrying those developing fruits through to maturity. That shift means the plant's demand for certain nutrients can become more noticeable, especially when it is carrying a heavy crop. This is one reason gardeners sometimes become confused. They see a plant with healthy leaves and assume the soil must be providing everything the plant needs. But a plant can look reasonably healthy while still experiencing a nutritional imbalance that becomes more obvious once it enters a demanding flowering and fruiting stage. I used to make the same mistake. Whenever a chili plant slowed down, my first thought was usually that it needed stronger fertilizer. I believed that if a little fertilizer helped, then a slightly larger amount should help even more. But gardening doesn't always work that way. Giving a plant more nutrients isn't automatically the same thing as giving it the nutrient it actually needs. Sometimes the problem isn't that the plant needs more of everything. Sometimes one specific nutrient is becoming limiting, and adding large amounts of unrelated nutrients won't solve the underlying issue. That's when I started paying closer attention to magnesium, and this is where Epsom salt enters the conversation. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, which means it contains magnesium and sulfur. Both are nutrients plants can use, although they are required in much smaller quantities than the major nutrients nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Magnesium is especially important because it is a central component of chlorophyll, the pigment that gives healthy leaves their green color and allows plants to capture energy from sunlight through photosynthesis. When a plant genuinely doesn't have enough available magnesium, one classic sign can be yellowing between the veins of older leaves, while the veins themselves remain noticeably greener. Of course, not every yellow leaf means magnesium deficiency, because yellowing can have many causes, including watering problems, root stress, nutrient imbalance, disease, or other environmental issues. That's why Epsom salt should never be treated as a universal cure for every chili plant problem. But when magnesium really is the missing piece, supplying an appropriate amount can help correct that deficiency and support normal plant function. The surprising part for me wasn't simply discovering that Epsom salt contains magnesium. What really caught my attention was realizing how little may be required when there is an actual need. Many gardeners hear about a simple remedy and immediately think that using more must produce a stronger result. That assumption can create problems. Epsom salt is still a salt, and adding excessive amounts doesn't magically multiply the benefit. Instead, unnecessary salts can accumulate in the growing medium and potentially interfere with the balance of nutrients and water around the roots. So the goal isn't to pour Epsom salt onto every chili plant just because it is flowering. The goal is to understand whether the plant actually needs additional magnesium in the first place. This distinction is incredibly important, especially if you grow chilies in containers. Garden soil and potting mixes can behave very differently. In an open garden bed, roots may explore a much larger volume of soil, while a container gives the root system a limited amount of growing medium. Every time you water a container and excess water drains away, some soluble nutrients can leave with that drainage. Over a long growing season, this can gradually change the nutrient balance. Two plants can therefore start with almost identical conditions and still end up behaving differently because their root systems, nutrient uptake, moisture levels, or tiny differences in the growing medium aren't exactly the same. Looking back at those two chili plants, I realized that one wasn't necessarily a better plant than the other. It may simply have reached a nutritional limit sooner. And that finally explained something I had been struggling to understand for weeks. But understanding that difference was only the beginning because there was another important question I needed to answer. If magnesium was part of the problem, how could I provide it without creating a new problem? That's where many gardeners make a mistake. They discover Epsom salt, hear that it contains magnesium, and assume that using more will automatically produce more flowers and more chilies. I learned that this is exactly the wrong approach. Epsom salt is still a salt, and too much of it can build up in the growing medium and interfere with the balance around the roots. It is not a complete fertilizer either. It contains magnesium and sulfur, but it does not provide the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that chili plants need in larger amounts. So it should never replace good soil, proper watering, sunlight, drainage, or a balanced feeding routine. If a chili plant is struggling because the roots are constantly sitting in water, the soil is poor, or the plant isn't receiving enough direct sunlight, Epsom salt isn't going to fix those problems. But if the plant is genuinely short on magnesium, a small and carefully diluted application may be useful. One commonly used mixture is about 1 level tablespoon of Epsom salt dissolved completely in 1 gallon of water. I prefer making sure every crystal is dissolved before applying it, because you don't want a concentrated pile of salt sitting around one section of the root zone. The solution can be poured slowly around the base of the plant so the moisture spreads through the surrounding soil. During flowering and fruit development, this type of treatment is generally used occasionally rather than constantly, with roughly 3 to 4 weeks between applications. And that timing matters. There's little reason to add it simply because a young plant has started growing. The plant needs change as it moves into flowering and fruit production. Most importantly, don't use Epsom salt just because your plant is flowering. If the leaves are healthy, the plant is growing normally, and it is already setting plenty of fruit, there may be nothing to correct. The goal isn't to give your chili plant every possible supplement. The goal is to identify what is actually missing. And when I finally understood that, those two plants in my garden made much more sense. One wasn't magically better. It may simply have had slightly different roots, slightly different nutrient availability, or simply reached the point where its magnesium supply became limiting sooner. That small difference was enough to create a very noticeable difference in fruit production. And that taught me something I still remember every growing season. Before reaching for another product, stop and look carefully at what your plant is telling you. Sometimes the answer isn't more fertilizer. Sometimes it's simply understanding the plant's changing needs.